All I can say, ladies and gentlemen, is to keep faking it and you'll have the best chance possible to make it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the House. Thank you all for coming and welcome to perhaps the most elaborate and pompous examples of clowns spouting mediocre, confused speeches ever seen by the public, at least since last week's televised election debate. To begin for the proposition, I must start on the topic of faking it with a slightly risque, delicate opening gambit. And it is a question mainly for the female members of the House, or the men as well, if you want. Now, I know what you're all thinking I'm going to ask, and you are absolutely right. Ladies or gentlemen, if you're brave enough, please raise your hands if you've ever faked an orgasm. Right. All right, I see. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with my argument, really. I was just curious. I'll be honest, I saw both my girlfriend and my mother raise their hands in the corner of my eye. I think it's a good thing I got my therapist on speed dial after the debate. I don't know, maybe me and my dad can double book. I jest. I want that on record. I jest. Of course, it helps my argument because I believe in many cases we do, and indeed should, fake aspects of ourselves in order to make people happy, for one, to move forwards, to push ourselves further, and most relevant to this House, gain positions that we're drastically unequipped for. From faking that you enjoy your grandmother's Christmas gift of socks, to add an imaginary sport and prowess for teamwork skills to a CV, to, I don't know, pretending you didn't have Sky Plus as a kid, as Rishi Sunak did. I feel no one is exempt of having faked something in order to make their lives easier or achieve something in some way. This being my first term on committee and indeed my first time doing public speaking, I myself am currently faking being confident. But I proved my point because it's getting me through, I hope. Besides, if I have the sudden urge to nervously projectile vomit, I've got a multiple array of targets here. I've got the dispatch box, I've got the minutes book, or perhaps that massive fucking bin over there. And on that bin shell, before I expand on my argument, it falls on me to introduce the speakers in opposition for tonight's debate. Leading the opposition is Barney Wakefield, a second-year geographer at Brasenose College, and he's leading quite appropriately, I must say, given his long yet unachieved aim to go far in the returning officer arm of the union. And for the normal, sane people here, read that as basically the Union Feds, or actually I've had a recent note that is now the Tommy Robinson Appreciation Committee. Not exactly sure what that means, but there we go. And so he is clearly dead against any fakery used to earn elected positions, although ironically, perhaps some fakery could actually lead him to gaining the position he so craves. However, with Barney helming from Huddersfield, my colleague Ben from Newcastle, and myself being, and I've been told by the Chief of Staff to apologise for this, from Liverpool, we can clearly see that our President entrusts us Northerners with tackling only the most influential and headline-making matters of our time, as well as ticking off his, charity, event of the term. However, I'll just take as us Northerners generally being funnier than all you posh bastards. Listen, on that point, before I get to the others, I'm faking my best diction tonight. However, if there is something you don't quite catch, feel free to approach me in the bar afterwards, and confront me on what you missed. And don't worry, the interaction will be warm, jovial, and explanatory, but it may be, after you turn away, it may perhaps be a few minutes or even an hour, but you'll come to find, when you go to pay for a drink at the bar, that your wallet is indeed missing. Also on opposition is Jake Pito, a first-year Class 6 student at Christ Church. Apart from clearly breaking our northern slate we built here tonight, I tried to find something out about Jake in the past few hours, and I couldn't really find much about him, to be honest. However, multiple people did refer to him as a mad lad, yeah? But, so I'll let that speak for itself, and we'll have to see just how mad he gets. But I'm still not surprised that he's in opposition, as given he's in line to become a viscount or a baronet or whatever the fuck it's called. At some point, I doubt he's ever had to be anyone but himself to feel right at home in Oxford. Moving on from Jake. No, ladies and gentlemen, the house has not been pumped with an airborne psychedelic drug. You are indeed seeing correctly. Despite having our fair share of clowns, both from nobility as members and as guests of the union, this is the first time we've actually seen one holding a title actually attend a comedy debate. I'm of course referencing our lordship Count Binface, himself a leader of the Recyclons from the planet Sigma 9, as well as being a previous candidate for the London mayoral election and currently expressing intention to compete in the current general election. I would say he is, in many senses, an all-round piece of trash. Mr. President, these are your speakers, and they are most welcome. I would also like to say I felt very welcomed in my first term on committee by all members, and I couldn't have asked for a better introduction into this institution. It's been an immense pleasure. I would especially like to thank our esteemed President, Louis Wilson, for this amazing opportunity. It was very generous of him to award me the speech, and it was even more generous as a father to allocate me a 6-week window over the summer holidays in which I can occupy his flat in Munich. He said there was no strings attached, but I mean, we'll see if that's true. In all seriousness, though, Louis and the committee have expertly navigated a turbulent yet amazing term. I think we should give them all a big hand. But I'm not done with Louis just yet. He leads perfectly into my argument, as Louis, of course, began as an actor before approaching the union. It was perfect training. He himself, in many instances, faking the part of a supporting character in order to actually become the lead. But I mean, we all fake in this institution. One of Louis's most infamous predecessors was a little-known boy called Alex. You know, Alex? Okay, maybe not. But he might have been more known when he came to Oxford and the Union and adopted the more comedic Boris upon arriving at the Union. And I suppose that doesn't help my case very much, as we all know how that went in terms of being equipped for a role. But nevertheless, this fakery of a new name and identity was a fundamental part of him making it and making the common people's lives a fucking hell. What I'm trying to say is Oxford itself is a world of masks, and no, not just the ones we wear at various secret pig orgies. I'm talking about all university life is seen as a way in which we can reinvent ourselves and reach further than we ever could before. So we should embrace it, understand it, and use it for our benefit. However, let's take this argument out of this little arena of jumped-up, self-inflated 18 to 25-year-olds playing silly politics and instead into the real world. Of course, faking for personal gain can be bad. You don't want someone faking being a doctor, for example, especially that supposed GP that's overly keen to give you a prostate exam / smear test. I mean, obviously that's a joke. You'd have to wait 6 months to see little pedo anyway. Fraud and tax evasion as fakery is also awful, of course, but I'm a bit uncomfortable saying that in this room, as without it I feel like this room population would decrease by roughly 70%. I guess faking expertise can be dangerous in some situations. In fact, a YouGov survey in America determined just under half of men confidently feel that they can land a passenger plane in an emergency situation. While this is somewhat ridiculous, I must applaud it as belief that you can do it, and the rush of pushing a pilot in cardiac arrest off a seat, taking the reins, and undoubtedly nosedive into the sea is much better than having an oxygen mask strapped to your face and wishing that after you die, someone doesn't go into your search history. It can be helpful for social enjoyment if you wish to venture into the vast tapestry that is Oxford's club scene tonight. you'll find people convincing themselves through alcohol and an array of other substances that the club is anything but the absolute shithole it is. Yet they're all convinced they're having a great time, and that's okay. And most importantly, and what I finally want to come to, is this debate references most directly the use of faking it to achieve a position or to make it. I'm going to refer to my own personal statement in which I used to enter Oxford University. I stated, English literature is a solace of freedom in which I can only truly express myself. However, you know, even at A-level and even now, it's more akin to a sense of paranoia in prison, waiting for that unexpected cellmate. But it got me in tonight, and it's the only reason I stand before you tonight. So I hope you vote for the proposition tonight, and to close, all I can say, ladies and gentlemen, is to keep faking it, and you'll have the best chance possible to make it. Thank you, and good night.